Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Imuna. It has been a long time. I shouldn't have left you, but I needed some time. So for those on Facebook, shout out to you. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, share. If you're on all social media, do the thing. Y'all already know I disappear from time to time because a lot of what I speak about, I would say a good amount of what I speak about, is my life. What I have experienced. And so sometimes you have to go away and experience life, right? And then come back and then share what it is that you have gleaned, of course, after you process it. Today, I wanted to, for those who may not know, who may be new with a lot of what I do a lot of study and sharing and information around the soul and essentially healing the soul. So many years ago, at 2016, I wrote a book called Soulonomics. That's available on Amazon. And basically it's talking about, I was looking into the soul, trying to understand it, and try to understand how to heal, right? From a position of retrospectiveness. And so of recent, something happened in my life where I was like, yo, I thought I had it together. You know what I'm saying? I thought I had it together. And then something emerged. Like I always talk about the different layers of healing, like an onion, right? So you're peeling back the layers and then boom, you hit something. You're like, what is going on here? And that's kind of where I have been for a moment. Now, I want to talk about, without any further ado, understanding the nature of soul ties. But before I go into the nature of soul ties, from what I've understood and gleaned, and if you have gleaned as well, feel free to leave it in the comment section, each one teach one, is basically first, and I know we probably heard it a lot of places, understanding the soul and what is the soul, right? And so I was on YouTube, and I usually am not on the relationship side of YouTube, and I'm like, what is all of this? It's like I'm usually on like the health side of YouTube or Nigerian comedy. I mean, but this side of YouTube, there's so much information. I was just like, wow, that's a lot to take in. But essentially everybody's on there talking about soul ties and how to break soul ties, and I'm like, okay, the way my mind works is basically first rewind, what is the soul? Right? Before we could talk about it being tied or bound, what is the soul? What is it comprised of? And a short search will show you that it's comprised of your memories, it's comprised of your consciousness and your subconsciousness. It's the immaterial part of man. It's the part, if you subscribe to what the Torah tells you, it's the part that becomes a living soul when it interfaces with the body and the spirit. And this animation is what animates the flesh, right? It's what makes me me and what makes you you. That's your soul, right? And it has all of these different elements. It's immaterial, so we can only try to understand it to a certain degree, but how much of us really understand it, right? So in a nutshell, that's what it is. So when I was thinking like, okay, soul tie, then I went over to the tie part. Welcome to those who just joined us. I went over to the tie part, right? So I'm just going to read briefly the definition, because before you can undo something, you have to understand what it is. And what really got me to thinking recently was the Gorilla Glue lady. The Gorilla Glue lady who put the Gorilla Glue on her head trying to slick down her ponytail, right? I'm going to use it as an illustration because for those who may be new, I like illustrations. That's how I learn. I'm audio visual. Okay, so we have the Gorilla Glue lady. She thought it was a good idea. She slicked it down. Her head was stuck, so it was bonded to her scalp, okay? And she was miserable because it couldn't come off. Now, one Nigerian doctor saw this. When it came to his attention, he decided, because he had a degree in chemistry, because he had a degree in understanding beyond what everybody was seeing, he knew that every bond has a reverse. Right? So when they interviewed him, I found his interview very interesting because he said that he reverse engineered anything, any chemical has something that you can do to undo that bond. So he reverse engineered based on what he studied, that formula. He reverse engineered it, and that's how he was able to get her glue unbonded from her head. Take it from Gorilla Glue lady, where everybody's laughing, kiki kaka. I like to try to find, okay, where is the principle in all of this? Where is the Torah in what it is that we are hearing and seeing? He just gave you a deep principle. So when we talk about soul tie and soul bond, first we have to understand, we have to be chemists. We have to understand the nature. You already know, for those who may be new, when y'all see me do this, you don't know I have children who just like to run up on me. when I'm doing something. So to undo something, we first have to understand the nature of that thing. And I'm talking from somebody who experienced it, and shalom everybody, welcome, and understands that it's not as easy as it seems, but if we have the correct tools. Like, I'm quite sure other doctors may have looked at Gorilla Glue lady and was like, you know what I mean, it sucks to be you. But this one particular person who had the foreknowledge was like, nah, something can be done. Okay, so soul ties and soul bonds, that's what we're talking about. So if we go to the soul part, so we know your soul is made up of all of these things, right? Which allows us to be attracted or repelled from certain people. Like, I'm going to use Gorilla Glue throughout this because it's something that was in our sight. It was something that was viral and we can relate to it, okay? So the hair on her head bonded with the chemical substance and it stuck to her scalp, okay? So in a soul bond or a soul tie, there has to be something in the individual that is going to allow it to adhere. I don't know if you've ever tried to use certain glues on glass. They will say it does not adhere to glass. You cannot bond this piece of glass on this piece of wood. It's not going to work. So when you're talking about the world even of adhesives, there are certain ways and things that you have to do for that adhesive to stick to the surface that you're looking for it to stick to. I'm going to slow down. It's been a while. Y'all know when it's been a while, it goes whoosh, right? So I'm going to slow down. So essentially, the dictionary says that bond, I wrote it down so that I'm not all over the place. Something that binds or restrains. Fetters. A binding agreement, a bond. Like, oh, that person has a bond. It can be verbally, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. A cord used to tie something. An adhesive, fusible ingredients that combines. Right? That's a bond. And a tie is to fasten or to attach, to form a knot, to establish in a relationship. So these words are interconnected. Bond and tie. Usually tie is used in a negative and bond oftentimes is used in the positive. We know that based on life, based on creation, everything has a positive and a negative. Now, it doesn't mean good and bad. It has positive effects and negative effects. Now, if you want to carry something or move something that doesn't naturally fit, you're going to look to tie it, right? You're going to look to adhere it if you want it to be permanent. But if you want it to not be permanent, you will tie it to a certain degree, right? Anything that's not can be unknotted. We're talking about understanding the nature of soul ties and soul bonds. As I was thinking and listening to a lot of people sharing some stuff that I'm like, I don't know about this. I don't know about this. I'm coming. Go back inside, dear. Something came to me. Oftentimes, we're looking for relationship advice, right? How do I get out of this situation? How do I get out of this problem that I got into? But if we just broaden the scope a little bit before we narrow it, what came to me is that soul ties and soul bonds do not only just relate to people. It's not just relating to, and I'm going to talk at another time about first loves and all of this stuff, but it doesn't just relate to people. You can be bond, and okay, so let me back up. Now that I've said that, it can be to a person, it can be to a place, it can be to a thing. Yeah? I'll say that again. Soul ties and soul bonds don't only just relate to people. It can relate to a person, a place, or a thing. For instance, if somebody attended a school and that's their alma mater, what's going on, Marlon? And that's their alma mater. They feel a bond. They feel a connection with that school. If some place is your homeland, some place where your family or your mother comes from, your mother country or your father tongue, you feel more comfortable. You lean towards the thing that is most familiar with you, that resonates with your soul, right? So soul ties and soul bonds are not necessarily to people. It can go beyond people. Now, with that said, we can understand why people can be wrapped up into drug abuse, or people can be wrapped up into going to a certain place or doing a certain thing. Their particular soul leans towards that and is bonded toward it. With that being said, you may love it, but it may not necessarily always love you, right? You can bond to it. I'm going to give 3 examples. your soul can be bonded to something. For instance, you could say, oh my goodness, you know, the president gave me this pen when I went to go sign in, and this is my favorite pen. We see that on eBay. We see that on places where people have, what do they call this thing again? They have memorabilia, and they imbue this memorabilia with the story, with the information, with whatever it is, right? And so now their soul is bonded to it, because when they possess this thing, it means ba 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 ba. So the thing itself is inanimate, right? It's whatever you project onto the thing. It's the same thing people do with idols. Whatever you project onto this thing, that's what it means to you, and your soul has cleaved onto it, right? So you can bond to it, and I'm not going to keep this long because I'll come back another time and talk. It bonds to you, right? It's them. So it can be that you are not leaning towards it, but it or the person is leaning towards you, right? So this is the unrequited love on the side of the person who's not giving it. It can be somebody loves you, somebody cares so much about you, and you don't really feel the same about them, right? So it's one-sided. Or it can be that these two things or these two people are bonded together. So sometimes when people give general information and general advice about soul ties and soul bonds, I find it just back to the Gorilla Glue lady, it doesn't necessarily work for everybody, because according to her, she washed her hair like some 20 times, right? But it didn't come out because she didn't have the formula to allow for it to be undone. So if we go around giving general information about soul ties or about things of this nature, and then it doesn't work for people, it may be because we have to look, it's not one size fits all, right? And so that's just my thoughts. I'm going to recap. I pray everybody's doing well. Understanding the nature of soul ties. Let me know your thoughts. It can be bonded to you. You can be bonded to it. Or if it is an animate, both of you are animated, then you can be bonded to each other. Bonds and ties, they strengthen, they secure, they confine and restrict, or they entangle and restrain. It really depends, right? It really, really, really depends. I was going to go, but it's going to take me it's going to take me down a long, long path that I'm not trying to go today. Yeah, so that's basically understanding the nature. What type of soul tie do you have? Hey, Angel, welcome to the conversation. Are you bonded to it? Is it bonded to you? Or are you bonded to each other? Again, it can be drugs. It can be a place. It can be an idol. It can be an ideology. It can be whatever it is, whatever you have attached yourself to, your emotions to, your memory to, your thoughts to, your desires to. And that's another thing I'll leave with this. In the case of adhesive, they have all of these chemicals that come together and it makes an adhesive. One of the adhesives of the soul is desire. One of the adhesives of the soul is desire. When we desire something, we go towards it. Right? When we want something, what do? We go towards it. So we can tell in that desire is what allows a soul to begin to adhere to whatever it is that it desires. And this is where it's interesting and important for us to watch the thoughts that we think. Now, what does this have to do with soul ties? And how do I get over the person that broke my heart? Somebody may be saying. And how do I undo it? How do I snip it? How do I cut it? That's another conversation for another day. I find that if we go a little and a little and a little, that might help it to understand. So again, thank everybody for tuning in. I know I'm cutting this short. I think I'll probably type up some of these notes and then leave it so you can see. And then we'll come back at another time and talk about, what's the other thing I have to talk about? Y'all see I got all these notes. We'll talk about another time, what forms the soul ties. So we know one of the adhesives is desire, and then another time we're going to talk about what forms these soul ties. What are some of the things that we do to make this desire stick? All right. So with that said, everybody have a blessed day. Thank you for tuning in. All right. Like, subscribe, share, all that lovely, great, beautiful stuff. Oh.